Okay, so tonight we talk about scripting, and I'm probably gonna bounce around this chapter 23 because there's stuff in here you really don't need to know, and then I'll show you what you want to do for scripting. If you want to do some of this stuff on your own, what you need to try and download is a product called XAMPP. And if you can just look for it, I think it may be. I think it's the website is at ApacheFriends.org, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and you can download this tool, XAMPP. You can download it for Windows. You can download it for the Mac. It also works on Linux. And it's a really great tool because it comes with Apache, which is your web server. It comes with MySQL, which is a database you're going to need. We need to look at that. It comes with PHP and also Perl and a couple of other things as well. But tonight we're going to look at Apache. That's pretty straightforward. You just got to start it. And we're going to look at some of the directory structures for putting PHP files in, and then we'll look at how to connect a PHP program to MySQL. Okay? So we'll get started with that. So I don't know how much of this I really want to go in depth because this thing talks about a lot of stuff and it gives some examples that don't really, that I think that are more complicated than they need to be. And I have some simpler examples. Okay, a little slow there. Okay, but we will look at primarily going to be looking at the PHP language tonight. We already did some database stuff last week, so we'll look at that and how to interact the two. MySQL. We're going to look at PHP. You've already been doing some JavaScript programming. PHP is a language with similarities to JavaScript. But we'll look at some basics here. And again, I'm going to bounce around a little bit because I don't really like. I think some of the examples they have here are a little too complicated. But we could look at this first example, which is fairly straightforward. This is just basic HTML, but it's got a little scripting in it, what we call server-side scripting. Right here, and you can see what's in red, where it says PHP, a less than sign question mark PHP. Then you have something there that says $name equals Harvey. That's a variable declaration, and you're assigning it the value Harvey. So variables in PHP are automatically created, and the only requirement is that they need to start with a $sign. So all variables in PHP start with a $sign. And then down here, you're going to see where it's going to be doing some stuff as well, and everything in this PHP tag will be what we call server-side script executable code. It means it's going to execute on the server and send the result to the web page. So I'm pretty sure I've got that example here as well. Okay, welcome to PHP. Now this is the script that's on my web server. If we do a view source, what you're going to see is you actually don't see any of the PHP. And the reason for that is that the PHP, the script, is executed server-side, which means it's executed by the server, not by your local computer, and the result of the execution is what's sent to your browser. So you don't actually see this. Now, if we actually want to look at this, I can get it. We can take a look at it. Well, let me do this. Let's do something here. Let's take a look at XAMPP. I downloaded it. XAMPP doesn't actually need to be installed. It just needs to be downloaded to your computer. In the main XAMPP directory, and we're going to look at a few things here, you have something called XAMPP control. I'm going to double click it. And now what I see is that I have Apache and MySQL already running. The reason it's already running is I have them set up to start automatically. If you didn't have that, then you'd have to click start to start it. For what we're going to do tonight, all we need is Apache and MySQL. But this is a control panel that will do it. The next thing you have to know is where you need to put your documents for XAMPP. And it's going to be in a directory under XAMPP called htdocs, HTML documents. You can create multiple documents underneath that. And let me see if I already have these downloaded. I may already have these downloaded, these examples downloaded. I'm not sure if I do or not. Let me see, I might. Once the server is started, you can actually get to it pretty easily. You type in http:// localhost, which means it's somewhere on your own computer. You're not actually going out to the internet, you're just going to look for a server on your local computer. And I think I probably just have them under Timlin. Okay, so this is not the most current website, but we don't care about that. Yeah, this is a little old. Need to update that. Ooh, that's very old. What did I do here? Full. It's got some errors in it. Okay, well, let me show you one of the things you can do. It's pretty old, right? I'm going to go, separately, I've got an FTP program. And, don't care about that right now. So I'm going to update, right? It's got to do this now. Let me. Any questions so far? Let's move on a little bit in this example and what we'll come back to. Okay. So, what you're seeing is the result of the execution, and we'll see that in a moment as well. Failing to proceed a variable with a $sign is a syntax error. So, variables have to be preceded with a $sign. You have no choice. The nice thing about it is that everything that's preceded with a $sign is assumed to be a variable, so you don't really have to do string concatenation like you have to do in JavaScript. Variable names in PHP are case sensitive, the same as JavaScript. So variable really names are pretty much the same as JavaScript, with the exception that you have to precede it with a $sign. Again, you have to put a semicolon that terminates a command, just like you have in JavaScript. There are data types in PHP, though you don't have to specify them necessarily when you create a variable. You can convert that variable later on to that data type. I'm not going to worry too much about types. This next example actually does go through some types. What it does is it goes through and it's going to convert each one of these to a different type. So it stores them all initially as string there, and then these are double and an integer. Then it goes through and it prints them all out as is, but then it uses this set type command to convert them to a different type. And when it does that and it converts the test string to double, what you wind up having is that the seconds is basically chopped off, because it basically parses this thing to double until it runs into something it can't parse to double, and then it just goes with whatever it got. Same thing with integer, and then back to string. So if we were to run this, we would see started out with the normal values, and then the values eventually got truncated because we converted it to different types. Let's see what we got here. Okay, finish. Okay. Let's see. So on my D drive, which is over here, it's not going to be under that. It's going to be under XAMPP. And again, it's under htdocs. Now it looks like I've got under Timlin. So I've got my website stuff. Now if I go down here, this is on my server. I don't bring anything over that's too big, but so if we look at what I've got here right now, this obviously is out of date. It's all very old, right? None of it's current. But if I go over here and I just see what we got, and I don't think I need to go back that far back. I probably need to go back. Let's just say here. Then I can just literally drag and drop it over here. And it's going to move everything over. It might take a bit. There's some stuff there. By the way, okay. Trying to. So as this is transferring files over, sorry for the green, we'll eventually see the site updates. Okay, so you see I've already got some updates. Still got a few more things to go. This class list, now you see this looks like the real class list. Making some progress. Of course, that's still bad because I haven't copied that directory over. We'll do that next. Okay, it's still copying stuff. So it's PHP. This is PHP1. So here's this one here. I'm going to open it up. And there it is. That's not it. What happened? I do this here, print dollar name, that should work. Okay, so this is still going, so I'm not going to be able to, but I'm just going to type in up here php1.php. Okay, so it says, welcome to PHP Harvey, right? So, and if I change this here and I change it to call it something else, like say, save it, then I go here and I refresh it so you can see that that's running on my local environment. That's running on Bob. Again, if we look at the source here, and all we see is the result of the execution. If I look at the source file, we see the PHP commands. The important thing to know is that the browser doesn't see the PHP commands, because the PHP commands are executed on the server. JavaScript is client-side server, which means it's executed by the by the client or the browser, and PHP is what they call server-side scripting, which means it's executed on the server, and the results of the execution are sent to the browser. We'll see more on that later. So here, this is the source file that's on my local server, and this is the result that we have right there. Now we can look at that other example, which is the HP2, which has a problem. Okay, it's got an error, so we'll take a look at that. This is what it's got, and it gave us an error. It says line 35. Yeah, it's a problem right now. I'm not sure why these files definitely having some trouble. So right now, this black screen is what's on my actual Timlin.net server. And I'm just using copy and paste to copy it over. Okay, for some reason there was a problem with that. Okay, so now I copied and pasted it onto my local computer. Let's try that again, and hopefully we'll fix it. There we are. So you can see that it started out, and again, if we look at the source, we're not going to see all that PHP code that we have right here. We can put it side by side so you can see what's going on. Look out. Okay, so you don't see any of those. We see the values that start at 3.5 seconds. It is a string, 79.212. So the first thing we do is we print it all out, and we're printing out the data type. Get type for each variable, so it tells us what the data type is. Then, further down, we start converting it. So the first one I convert to a double. So when we say that, so then here it's the output is 3.5 seconds as a double is 3.5. So essentially it just got rid of the word seconds, chopped it off, because there's no way to convert the word seconds to any sort of double value. So it's a little different from JavaScript. If it can't parse it, it generally, I think, gives you a 0. In this particular case, what it does is it parses what it can, and then as soon as it can't parse anymore, it just stops, and it just uses whatever it's got and goes with that. So it's a little different behavior than you have in JavaScript. Same thing with the double converted to an int. It loses the 0.5. So when we convert it to an integer, it loses the 0.5. When you convert it back to a string, everything it lost is lost. It's not like it's saved somewhere and it can put it back in. So converting the 3 back to a string doesn't get you 3.5 seconds again, because all that's already been lost. So it's just 3 as a string. And again, a similar thing happens here with this 98.6 degrees. You can print it out. One thing you can do, what this thing shows you is a little different, is something known as casting. The set type is a permanent change in the data type. What we're doing here is something called casting, which is really just a temporary change. So I temporarily change it to a double, temporarily change it to an integer, and then when I print it out again, we see that it's still a string. And that's because it's a temporary change. You don't really need to worry too much about this typing and stuff for what we're going to do in the later examples. Print is a print function, much like you have the write in JavaScript. You can print out just about anything you want. It's also very helpful for debugging purposes. Let's see where we're at with this. Still going. Assigning a value to a constant after it's declared is a syntax error. We didn't talk about constants in JavaScript because you don't really have that concept. It's a value that doesn't change. It's a variable. It's like a read-only variable, essentially. Okay. Just going to go over this one fairly quickly because, I don't know if we're going to need to grab it from the server or not. We might need to. Yeah. I don't know why these all got corrupted. Any questions so far from what we're doing?